If you are for the safety of your children, you will teach them not to look like the bad guys. Hey guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. If you would, please click the subscribe button down below. Click the bell so that you get continued notifications of new content. Welcome to the channel. Welcome to this video. I want to talk to you guys about an article. I dropped into the Gospel Coalition, as I often do, and what I found was some pretty solid content. Not all of it was bad, of course. There was some things on the atonement. It looked pretty solid, and some other things, book reviews and stuff like that. And for once, I didn't get on there and see like multiple articles on social justice and things like that, which is usually, or has been the case in the past. But there I saw it, right? I was scrolling through the kind of front page where all the articles are presented, and there I saw it. Raising Black Boys with Hope by Christy Annie Abuile. Raising Black Boys with Hope. The SEO must be really good on this one because the word black is in there, and it's talking about black children. So everybody has a sentiment towards children, right? So this article probably got a lot of clicks. Now, here's what she says. I want to read to you some of the things that she says. When I'm fearful about the world, preying on my son, or fearful that what he wears or where he goes might get him killed. Now, let me actually back up. Let's see what he wears, right? When I look at my son with his red Adidas hoodie, his name brand sneakers, maybe like some Jordans or something like that, his slightly baggy jeans, I see him as cute and cuddly as he was a toddler, right? So he's kind of wearing baggy jeans and a hoodie and some J's or something like that, right? Some name brand sneakers. So that's what he's wearing. He's 12. He's a 12-year-old kid, right? No harm in that. What he's wearing is fine. But here's what she says. When I'm fearful, that is when I'm scared about the world preying on my son. They're victims, right? Or fearful that what he wears or where he goes might get him killed, or fearful that he will be tragically misunderstood. I remember the love of God, perfect love that casts out my fear. Now, before I really dig into this statement, I'm going to be criticized for this. I'm going to get thumbs down maybe, if not some comments. And I hope I do. I hope I get some comments. I hope I get some people who are willing to interact. And the truth of the matter is, there probably will be no one who's willing to interact with what I'm about to say here. If you don't want your kid to suffer, if you want to protect his life, then train him up in the way that he should go. Instill in him common sense. All right, now, before I expound upon what I'm saying, I want to say a few things. The first is that it's not right that police officers often judge by mere outward experiences, and they get a little trigger happy, and then they end up taking someone's life, right? That's not right. That's not condoned in this video. I think a public servant ought to be willing to lay down their life. They ought to be willing to give up their lives for the sake of protecting others. Okay, so I do not endorse the behavior of some police officers, okay? But we used to have this saying in the Marine Corps, perception is reality. Perception is reality. Now, everyone knows that perception is not really reality, right? I mean, sometimes it can be. Sometimes if you perceive accurately or correctly, then yes, you are perceiving reality. But oftentimes, your perception is wrong, it's flawed, you're mistaken. And so your perception is not in line with reality. But what the statement got at, the sentiment of the statement, is that people act according to their perception, right? So if someone perceives you as doing good, they're going to treat you as if you've done good. If someone perceives you as if you've done bad, or if someone perceives you as if you are a threat, they are going to act accordingly. And unfortunately, that is the case among law enforcement and other people who have had bad experiences in the inner city, for example. If they perceive someone to be a threat, they are going to act accordingly. Okay, this is part of this is okay. I mean, it's okay to act according to perception, especially if it's accurate. That's what discernment is about, right? We judge rightly and we act according to that judgment, or we strive to have right perception about others and we should act accordingly. Think about church membership, Church discipline, things of that nature requires accurate perception, and then we act accordingly. Okay, that's the stuff discernment is made out of. But the reality of the matter is that out there in the world, what Christy is talking about, out there in the world, perception is often flawed. It's often flawed in the church too, but it's flawed a lot out there in the world, even among law enforcement officers. They're not perfect. Now, you say, or Christy, Annie Abwile says, that she's fearful that what he wears or where he goes might get him killed. No, she's not. No, she's not. I have kids. They're Hispanic, or at least part Hispanic. My wife is Mexican. And I'm not going to let them identify themselves with inner city Hispanic culture. In other words, I'm not going to encourage my child to go down to Independence Avenue and spend time on the street corners with other Mexican kids. And is that because I'm racist? No, it's not because I'm racist. It's because I care about my kid's life. I don't want him to be perceived as a threat. Well, I also don't want him to get involved in some of the things that are going on down there, but I also don't want him to be perceived as a threat, which he might be, understandably so. And so this whole thing you're talking about, you're fearful that what he wears might get him killed. Well, I can think of a really simple solution to that. Your kid's only 12. He's not out of the house. He's not an adult yet. Change what he wears. Tell him that he shouldn't wear what he's wearing because what he's wearing may cause him to be mistaken as a threat, regardless of whether or not him being mistaken as a threat is morally right, which I'm sure in most cases it would not be. It would not be accurate. The fact of the matter is that oftentimes people who are dressed a certain way, regardless of whether or not they truly are a threat, are perceived as a threat. Should they be? No, but they are. That's reality. And so I perceive that if you were truly fearful for your son's life, you'd be telling him not to dress like people who are often perceived as threats. In other words, don't let him look like the bad guy. Don't let him look like the bad guy. Yes, unfortunately, in black culture, I'm not saying black people, but the culture, inner city culture, is not a good culture. It's not good culture. It's rife with gang activity. It's rife with the sale and distribution of drugs. It's rife with slothfulness, a dependence on the welfare state. I'm not afraid to say these things because if you drive through any inner city context, you will see that this is the case. This is the case. Is it right? No, it's not right. I agree with everyone that it's not right. I don't think that blacks should be taught that they should be able to depend on the government. I think that they should be taught that they should work with their own hands and build their own little empires, their families, take dominion of the world, be free, be liberated from the left, be liberated from the welfare state. That's what I believe. So I don't think it's right that they are marginalized oftentimes in these inner city contexts. I don't think that's right. I think it's unfortunate. I think it's terrible. But here's the thing. What goes on down there is bad. What goes on in an inner city context is often very, very negative, destructive, life-destroying. That's reality. Okay, now people are going to come out and say, you're being racist, you're being insensitive, you're being unloving, uncharitable, blah, 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 blah. I really, no, I'm not. Nothing that I'm saying is being insensitive or racist. I'm just pointing to facts. What goes on in an inner city context is oftentimes very negative and life-destroying. Anyone who disagrees with that disagrees with reality. So if you're truly fearful that your son will be identified with that kind of a culture in which a lot of bad things happen, then I perceive that you would change what your son wears. He doesn't have to identify with inner city culture. He doesn't have to do that. He doesn't have to wear the baggy jeans and the big Adidas hoodies and the J's. He doesn't have to dress like that. There's nothing in the canons of law anywhere, either in Scripture or where you live, saying that he has to dress like that. And so, whether or not it's right, him being perceived as a threat because of what he wears, and I would agree that it's not right, I would change what he wears if I'm truly fearful for his life. I mean, his life is kind of priority over what he wears, right? Or over what kind of culture he wants to identify himself with. I'm more concerned about my child's life and his upbringing. I don't want him to be around the wrong people or identify with the wrong people either. I mean, this is basic common sense kind of stuff. This is biblical wisdom here. And you know, this article, time and time again, it references Scripture. And oftentimes it's Scripture that is supposed to be hopeful and encouraging. You are my hiding place and my shield. I hope in your words, Psalm 119, 114. Well, what does the word say? What does the word say? You know, part of being biblical, part of following the Scriptures, is living rightly in the creation in which God has made. You don't want to identify with the wrong kind of culture. I mean, this is even true in a missional context, right? You know, like Paul becoming all things to all men. He became all things to all men because he wanted to be perceived rightly. The qualifications for elders, they need to have a good reputation with those who are on the outside. And I think that's true for any Christian. I don't think it's true for just elders. 1 Timothy 3 is a principle we could all walk away with and apply to our lives. Have a good reputation with those who are on the outside. And whatever it takes to have that good reputation, whether or not that's changing what you wear, don't put a stumbling block in front of an officer. Maybe the officer is at total fault for assuming that your son is a threat because of what he wears. That doesn't matter. Because your son's life is at stake. And you also have someone who might commit manslaughter because they wrongly perceive your son to be a threat. So in order to eliminate problems on every side, just change what he wears and teach him not to dress like that. Unfortunately, that's what has to happen. Now, you're fearful of what he wears or where he goes might get him killed. Well, teach him not to go to the wrong parts of town. I mean, I don't understand the debate here. I don't understand the debate here. And I'm not saying that, you know, well, I'm not trying to say that, you know, that it's wrong in and of itself to dress how your son's dressed. I don't want to make this all about clothing or to go certain places or whatever. But you have to acknowledge as a matter of common sense that there are places in town you don't want to go, and there are people you don't want to be associated with for obvious reasons. You don't want to be perceived as a threat. You don't want other people to think of you as being associated with a certain kind of activity or culture or whatever it is. If you're really fearful, which I perceive that you're not, you would change what your son wears. You'd tell him, you would teach him, you'd train him up in the way that he should go, and he wouldn't identify himself with a threat. And the problem's eliminated. The problem, you have control of the situation right now. Christiane Abwile. You have control of the situation. What you do right now and what you teach your son right now determines whether or not he will be perceived as a threat. It totally determines whether or not he will be perceived as a threat. The world is in your hands. Control is in your hands. You have absolute control right now. Just teach your kid the way in which he should go so that when he grows older, he will not depart from it. That's biblical. You want to cite scripture? Let's start there. Anyways, guys, if you appreciated this video, if it was helpful in any way, and if you think it would be helpful for others, I'd appreciate a share on your social media platforms. Give me a thumbs up if it was helpful, if you enjoyed it. And if you have any questions, as always, leave me comments below. If you hated this, give me a thumbs down and let me know why you hated it. Engage. Don't just give me a thumbs down, but let me know why it was bad, okay? So we can interact on that basis. As always, I will remind you to subscribe to the channel, click the bell so that you get continued notifications as to new content. God bless you guys. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Monday.